Good morning, and I'm with you, Maria. I'm having trouble getting Kenneth Cloak's words out of my head. I hope they don't go away, actually. There's a lot of what he said that impacts the work that we're doing in schools, or mirrors or echoes that word. When he talked about the importance of growing skills of empathy, and he talked about growing the skills of dialogue and careful conversation, that's what this work does. That's what this whole field is about. So the work that we did, just a little bit of background of where this is coming from. I worked in a project at Fresno State that was started by another professor in the College of Education. We came at this as a basic skill, no less important than physics, math, reading, science, or anything else. It's a learned skill. You don't have to be just born with this magical ability to communicate carefully. You can actually learn specific strategies and skills to do it. So this was started by Dr. Pamela Garen, who was an angel on the earth. I got involved with her work, and what we did was we worked with student teachers that were in schools and paired them with schools with peer mediation programs so that they could come in and support the teachers that were implementing the program and the professors that were providing the instruction, and sort of triangulated this work with support that way. So it's important that you know this didn't just happen in a vacuum and it wasn't a random sample. So her program was called Mediator Mentors, and what we came into was the challenge to find out if this really does have an impact, or not does it really have an impact, what specifically is the impact of this work. And so I'm so glad that you're going to take this torch and take it forward, because we need more of this. We need to quantify. We know that the stories of the heart, and there's great power and importance in those stories, but we have to be able to tell them the story as well. That's what really does add a little bit more punch to what you're saying. So this was funding provided by the California Endowment through 2011, 2013. The location of the study was done in inner city Fresno. It was called The Place. It's a corner of the valley. I don't know if you're aware of some of the demographics of California. I'm sure you are. It's one of the areas most impacted with poverty, illiteracy, and crime. You kind of think that perhaps LA wins some of those prizes. We're right in the running, yeah? We've got some very, very challenging communities there as well. So approximately 95,000 residents in this area, multiple languages spoken. I couldn't believe when they said 100 different languages, but I didn't come up with that number, but apparently that is the demographic of that area. So the work that we did in gathering data was with 5 elementary schools and 2 middle schools. So we work with students 3rd grade and older with peer mediation, growing those skills early on, and younger doesn't really quite fit that peer model. So what each school had were 35 mediators, and each school had a mediator mentor, so a college student that was there to support, and they did their training at Fresno State with us as skilled trainers of mediation. So they were trained for 2 days off their school site at Fresno State, and then we had monthly ongoing training. So the total number, the N of this study, as in terms of mediators and non-mediators, is 245. So what we did was we took a control group, yes? So we had those 35 mediators that were trained at each school, and then we asked the school to identify comparable students who were not mediators. We did pre-post, and I'll show you some of the metrics that we used to see if there was an impact of positive change in the students that participated as mediators. So each of the schools received this program development. They did the pre-post. They had the support. I'm just saying what I just said, didn't I? They benefited from that regular ongoing marination. Yeah, it wasn't just a hit and run thing. There was a lot of support in what these students participated in. Okay, so these are the things that we used as the focus of the study. These were the measures that we looked at to help us decide what was the impact. So typically when a school is being wooed, or we want to do peer mediation at your school. We often talk about we'll reduce conflict at your school. It happens, it really does. But I just want you to know that the best secret may be that the people that are doing the work have the biggest benefit. That is, the students who are trained as mediators are the ones that really walk away with the grand prize. So sure, the disputants are impacted by the process, but you know who really wins are the kids that are the mediators. And I think that Clayton will help tell that story as well. Okay, so these are the things that we looked at. Empathy and cognitive perspective taking. We linked into the Davis IRI, and that is really an adult battery or metric. And so we had permission from Davis, and he worked with us actually to make sure that we didn't just sort of make up any wackadoodle thing we wanted. And he gave us permission to modify it into language that students could understand. And I'm not sure if I have that linked in the article, but I will share it with you. I will share that with you so you can see what that looks like. We looked at language arts standardized test scores. Those are scores that schools use all the time when they're telling their story or asking for support. We looked at school attendance. We looked, now some of these factors were sort of school-wide as well, so these things are more to the student, and then there were some other things that looked at what's the impact overall, what was the perception of safety, and what we looked at there were Healthy Kids survey, and every school in California takes that survey at the end of each school year to give a read of how safe do you think your kids are at school. Do you think your school supports your student? Is this a place you'd recommend to others, and so on. A sense of belonging, that also came out of that same survey, Healthy Kids. Incidents of bullying, we took school reporting on that. Suspension, expulsion, referral by school, that was also another school report. And this conflict strategy choice is a metric that was developed by Trish Jones, who is a giant in educational conflict resolution, and we know her personally, and again, she made sure that what we used was had efficacy, so we're pleased about that. One of the things that in particular we wanted to take a look at, because it was a focus of the Cal and Dow requirement, was to see what's the impact on English learners. So here we go. Now, by the way, this is really more of just tapa, right? I'm just giving you a teaser here. You really need to go and read the article yourself. I was involved as a trainer. I was involved in supporting the college students and making sure that we gathered the data, and worked with Fresno Unified, which was a beastly job, to make sure that we had comparable groups, pre and post, and that we got all the permissions that we needed, and all of the human subject clearance. What's really hard, I'm just saying, I hope you get a little easier bite at it, because it's very challenging. But we stayed with it. There were times we thought, you know what, never mind. Let's just make it smaller, or let's just measure a few other things. But no, thank goodness Dr. Langaran said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do what we said we were going to do. We're going to tell the whole story, whether it kills us. Almost did, but not quite. All right, so what we found with empathy, cognitive perspective taking, pre-post, statistically significant gains for mediators over non-mediators. The number cruncher were our graduate and doctoral students that helped us run these numbers to make sure that you didn't leave it to someone like me to try and make sense of all those numbers. But we found an approximately a 20% gain in empathetic responses. So that means that students who were mediators were more empathetic than the non-mediators. Yeah, makes sense. They were practicing careful listening. They're practicing finding what are the needs, what are the interests, what are the common grounds that people can have. Understanding the complexity of the story that Kenneth was reminding us again. So empathy can be grown. You can do it. Direct instruction does matter. Conflict choice strategy. Pre-post measures shows an approximate 6-point average gain in mediators choosing appropriate over inappropriate conflict resolution strategies. The academic gains, mediators were achieving at a higher rate pre-post. Most statistically significant gains were those who were English learners. Both groups did show an increase in language arts, because we don't lay claim that this is going to save the world. There are no silver bullets in this world of education, but there was an impact on kids that had very language intense experiences that were required in doing a good job in mediation. This was very exciting to see, actually, and I have to say, here's another little aside. I thought, there is no way we can, we're not going to get anything we can bring forward to the community. And sure enough, the data did bear out that these students that had this training did better academically. Hooray. Okay, so the impact on the school community again. These were schools that we looked at their results of the Healthy Kids before they had a peer mediation program and then after they had a peer mediation program. So there was a 5-point gain, pre-post, and feelings of safety at school, and this is the larger community. A sense of belonging, increased sense of belonging contribute to their engagement activities, violent prevention, an approximate 3-point gain there. Attendance, those who were mediators had a 30% higher attendance rating. You've got a job to do. This is a service that you provide to your school. I gotta be there today. Today's the day to mediate. Mom, I gotta get there, whatever it takes for me to be at school. There was a decrease of unexcused absences. So those are all very important things to be able to tell to the school where you come and say, we can help your school gain some serious ground academically and in social emotional dimensions as well. There was a reduced rate of reported bullying, suspension rates. You'll notice in the piece when you look at the article, one of our middle schools actually did not have a reduced rate of expulsion, and there's a more complicated story to tell. There's a change in administration. The elementary schools had a serious change in suspension and expulsion rates. So we can talk later. I could tell you a little more about that school, but that turned out to be a complicated, it was a good school to work with, but very, very complicated at the same time. So the moral of this story is the student or the person that does the work does the learning. And so I want you to be sure to tell those schools that you come in contact with, this is an important thing to do. It's going to be good for your whole school, but most importantly, it's really important for the kids who are trained as mediators. So I'm going to pass the torch now and to tell the story. I hope I didn't go too far over. I tend to talk a lot, so next.